Hey, what up? It's Persia Nicole from 92Q. And listen here, ladies, let's get information, okay? Get ready. You're about to experience the first ever virtual Why Women Cry conference series. You're going to be in for an amazing treat, okay? Got a little backstage access. I know who's going to be here, what artists and things like that. You're going to meet some amazing experts from areas in the fields of public health and experts in the field of successful living. The Why Women Cry conference series is not just about, surviving. It's about really thriving. It's not just about making it, but it's about making it happen, okay? It's not just about getting it done, but baby, we're going to dance in the face of fear, stomping all over fear. We ain't got time for that, honey. Welcome to the Why Women Cry Conference series. I have the pleasure to introduce Dorcas Baker, the moderator of our first ever 7 series, Generations Loving, Listening, and Living, okay? She'll be introducing our amazing panelists and our guest artists, and you're definitely going to want to stick around to see who will be this week's lucky winner, okay? Listen here, this is an all call for those who want to live with passion and purpose. Step up to the table and make sure your presence is known. Scream to the mountains, you are here. Let's make history, okay? This is our moment. This is our movement. This is our magic, okay? You heard Beyonce that said, who run the world? Girls, yes. Join us for an amazing experience like never before. Make sure you hit that share button real quick right now. And make sure you also bring another sister who needs to learn, live, and laugh, okay? Welcome to Why Women Cry 2021.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Persia, for that introduction. And on behalf of Reverend Deborah Hickman, the CEO and founder of Sisters Together in Reaching, I welcome you all to Why Women Cry, the 16th year. And before we get started with our panel and all the things that we're going to talk about this morning, let's hear greetings from our mayor of Baltimore, Mayor Brandon Scott.
This is Mayor Brandon Scott. I'm glad to join you for the Why Women Cry conference. This past year has been full of challenges, and we know all too well that taking care of our mental health is more important now than ever. This year's Why Women Cry conference theme is fitting as we all continue to learn the importance of mental health and the best practices to take care of our bodies and minds. I am committed to improving the lives of Baltimoreans through a lens of public health and encourage all of you to continue to prioritize your wellness. I commend Sisters Together and Reaching Inc. for their many years of service to women and girls and look forward to continuing to support the great work that you do. As we continue to navigate the hardships of this pandemic and life in general, I encourage you to stay safe, stay healthy, and take care of yourselves. Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone. Listen, I am so delighted to be able to introduce an awesome panel. We're just honored that we're starting off the conference with a phenomenal Generations panel. I mean, in support of the conference theme, how best to start it with generations. The panel will be millennials, generation, queen, whatever you want to call us, but it's a phenomenal panel. And they're going to be sharing with us how they're able to dance in the face of fear, the overarching theme, but we're going to get further into this conversation this morning as they will enlighten us on how to do this, loving, listening, and living. But let's start off with hearing from our panelists as I introduce them. I'm going to introduce all 3, and then they're going to share how they were able to dance in the face of fear. They can start from, they weren't dancing in the beginning. Fear doesn't make you dance at first. But let me introduce the panel. First, I'll start with our millennial, Marnina Miller. She's a human rights activist, and her expertise revolves around HIV advocacy, queer community engagement, language, justice, body positivity. You're going to learn so much from listening to Marnina, and she's a part of the Positive Women's Network. She's a youth ambassador. Her whole journey has been phenomenal. She's the co-chair for the Texans Living with HIV Network. She brings greeting from Texas, and she's been a board member of the Mahogany Project since 2020, where she also co-hosts of the In Living Colors podcast. And then we'll move to the next generation, if you want to call it that, Generation Xers. We have the lovely Randi Woods. She's a nurse executive, educator. She's a leadership coach and the senior director for community care coordination at Sisters Together in Reaching. Randi serves as a bridge, we will say, between community-based organizations and large health systems. Randi says she's a healer who operates from a place of love. Oh, I can't wait to hear from all of our panelists. And then we're going to hear Our third panelist that's joining us today is none other than Queen Joy Bramble. We may call it baby boomers. We may say silver fox. We may say seasoned. I say Queen Joy, a publisher of the Baltimore Times, a wife, a mother, a grandmother, entrepreneur, and all these ladies and some entrepreneurship. But as she's done awesome, amazing work in her journey. And I'm sure across the lifespan, as you listen to these three sharing what has happened in their lives. But let's start off by hearing from each one of you for a few minutes about how did you get to the place of dancing in the face of fear before we start talking about loving, listening, and living. It's going to tie in. I'm going to come back to that. But let's hear about that first. And we can start with our youngest and work our way up.
Yes.
Like that.
Thank you all for having me. I'm so excited to be at this conference. When I got asked to be a part, I thought about why women cry and thought about the theme of dancing in the face of fear. And I haven't always danced in the face of fear. I'm going to be completely honest. As someone who is young in this activism movement or advocacy space, when I first came in, I was extremely, extremely fearful. Black women are known for being these resilient, vivacious, amazing, and strength-holding folks. And in that space, I felt so docile because I thought, I'm a Black woman. I'm supposed to be, aggressive and happy and assertive in my space and in my hold as a woman. And I didn't feel that way. And so I thought of myself as lesser of a woman. And I think we do Black women and Black girls a disservice when we don't allow them to experience a full array of emotion. And so if you are fearful at this time, that's okay, because there are a lot of things in life to be afraid of. But what has been so influential to me is being around older Black women who have really embraced me and loved on me and allowed me to be my full self and have taught me things along the way. So my advice to anyone, who's a millennial or Gen Zer is to really get around older Black women, especially, people that are in your field of work that can really help and mold you and be a model to what you can become in life, because life isn't something to fear. It's something to dance with.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Keep it moving. Next generation.
Good morning to everyone. I think I've been dancing, I'm going to say figuratively, I've been dancing in the face of fear since a young girl. I always say a dancer saved my life. And so Maria Broom was a dancer, was my dance teacher throughout all of my youth. And I can remember dancing at Artscape. And I was so fearful, right? We held these baskets on our head and we had to, step out into a large crowd. And in that moment, she taught me to be graceful, to stand with your shoulders back, and to walk in the midst of that. And so that is my first place in dancing in the face of fear. I could feel all of those nerves and everything, every dance, every performance. And so that's where I really learned to, harness and take the butterflies and take them as, it is some anxiousness and everything, but I learned to say, hey, maybe this is just, I'm just really excited about the moment. But that's where I learned to dance in the face of fear.
Wow. Queen Joy.
Me? I had a great role model. My mom is now 99 years old and still pulling the threads of everybody in her family. She makes her own appointments. She does all of her banking online. She writes her own checks. She does everything. She has credit cards. She's on Facebook. She's on Instagram at 99 years old. So I got my example from that. She always said, okay, I grew up in a little tiny island called Montserrat with only 12,000 people living there, 4 miles by 9 miles long. That's the size of the island. But she always made us look out and look at it. And she says, if you didn't, for instance, you couldn't buy a dress in the store. You had to make everything. So we had these patterns, and I always use this with my children. Okay, you get a pattern, and then you go to buy the fabric, and then you find out that the pattern calls for 6 yards of cloth. and you only can buy 4. So what you do, you make it work. And so that's been my attitude since I was a kid. And she always encouraged us to always branch out, think, okay, this doesn't work. So what's the other alternative? I remember particularly when I was 15, I wanted to go to an international Girl Scout camp. It was the 100th anniversary of Girl Scouts. And I wanted to go. Of course, really couldn't afford it. She says, well, what are you going to do about it? I said, well, aren't you going to pay for it? She says, no. My dad says, no. What are you going to go about it? So we made fudge. We made cakes. My sister and I, we did all kinds of crazy things like that. And eventually we had enough money to pay. Not only was I able to pay for myself, I was able to pay for 3 other people in the troops. So I think with that kind of attitude, I've always tried not to think about fear, but to think of what the alternative is. If one road doesn't work, you think of what the opposite road is. And I think that's where I get my chutzpah from.
Wow. And that's amazing. All 3 of you still said something that ties in with our panel theme, that loving, listening, and living. All 3 of you listen to somebody. Like Marnina, you listened to the older woman. You said that was, strength for you. And then Randi, when you said you listened to the dance teacher.
That's right.
Enjoy, Queen Joy, all of you listen to somebody. But now y'all talk about, so moving from there, because I don't want to talk about your life. You got to show your bios are extreme. Talk about a little bit, how did that move you into the purpose? You developed purpose after a while, because you found out you could dance in the face of fear. So that was a foundation. Tell us, talk to us. How did that develop into purpose and passion? We're gonna talk now.
Okay, well, with me, as I said, I got married, and my husband wanted to come back to America to finish his PhD. So we decided that we would just came to America with $1,000 between the 2 of us.
Wow.
And nothing else. And we decided, okay, how are we going to make this work? So my sister lived in New York. My husband was going to Yale. So, and the other thing is, I was 6 months pregnant. That was the other thing. So I think I'm the only woman who was 6 months pregnant and got a job. I got a job teaching at the daycare center, because actually my training was in teaching. And from there, we decided, okay, well, once my husband got his PhD and we got kind of all that settled, we would move to Baltimore. And because he got a job here. And I was sick and tired of hearing on the radio every day what was wrong with Black people. It was never right. What was right with them was always what was wrong. They were always at jailbirds and all these things. And I kept saying, this is crazy. I don't know anybody like that. I go to a church, we have upright people. Our friends are all right. My neighbors are fine. So I said, I'm going to start a newspaper that would say only positive things about Black people. You have no idea how many people told me that I was crazy. Nobody's going to read a paper. And the other question was, what do you know about making a paper? I said, nothing, but other people have started papers. Why can't I do that? And so we started with a little paper about, I think it was 12 pages. 12 pages wrong. We got 3,000 papers. My husband and I went to pick them up. We had no idea how many papers 3,000 papers were. Filled up the trunk of our car. And we said, Lord have mercy, where are we going to put these papers now? And we just started to put them all over. And within 3 months or so, I think people read the paper and figured out what the theme of the paper was. And that's my story. Here, 35 years later, we're still here. So that's my story.
I think to piggyback off Ms. Bramble, it is like listening, like as I sit here and I listen to Queen Bramble, this is where I developed my passion and purpose from, like listening to the wisdom keepers and women who have done it before. Like when I always bring up and I reference Maria Berman, of course, my own mom, Reverend Hickman. But I listen to them and you just get filled with purpose, right? I wanted to emulate that, right? Like I want to do something where you leave, you create space and then you leave a bit more legacy, right? You just keep it going. And so even as I sit here, I want to interview Miss Bramble, because I can remember, my mother always says, I remember you would get lost in the neighborhood and I would always find you at an elder's home because I would go and sit and have tea, because there's something about listening to other people's lives that is very inspiring.
Wow, amazing.
So that's where I guess I'm a bridge too. I just love to be a bridge, not only in work and everything, but a bridge in life, like listening to stories from the past and then listening, and looking at it, how it influences my own life and saying, how can we move forward with it?
And some of those stories are so fantastic, because when you consider what I thought what we had to face was a lot, but when you consider what they were facing and still managed to overcome,
exactly,
it's an amazing, and that's very inspirational. And that's kind of what we try to do in the paper, is to publish those stories to show folks, it doesn't matter where you start, it's where you end up, and how do you share the story of how you got there, so other people can take that as an example.
Exactly. So when you say that listening is a thread that goes all the way, if you listen, Marnina, tell them more about what you did. Oh my gosh, just how you fell in love with activism. You listened and what happened?
So just like Queen Joy, that's what I'm gonna call her, because she's bringing me so much joy just listening to her story. Just like Queen Joy and Randi were saying, just the listening piece. So I received an HIV diagnosis that I was a woman living with HIV at the tender age of 21 while I was in college, and at first I was really fearful. I was scared. I was afraid, like anybody would be. And eventually through therapy and through group counseling, I was able to meet women that do HIV activism work, and strong, amazing, like resilient Black women that really took me under their wing and taught me, like, you don't have to be afraid. Women before you have done this. They have conquered this. They've been in that space before. They've been where there were no medications for people living with HIV, and they were able to thrive. You can do this, little sis. And so from there, just listening to their stories, listening to their whys, I began to create my own why. And I began to think about what activism and advocacy work could look like for me, because I've always loved politics. And so that was why I was going to school, political, education. I wanted to go to school. So I just bridged the two. And I was like, you know what? I am going to dance in the face of fear. I am going to dance despite my diagnosis. And so from there, I've been really able to connect with so many amazing Black women who have given me advice, even on health stuff. I'd be like, okay, look, I got this going on with my blood work. You've been diagnosed for 30 years. Talk to me about how that feels. And so, or what that may mean to my blood test. So there is so much love in listening. Just hearing someone's story can definitely take you on a journey. As Ms. Joy was talking, I was just listening to how her resilience was, of even having to go out there to decide, I want to go to this camp. I want to make this fudge. I want to make sure that I can, go where I want to go and do what I want to do. And there is joy in listening to other folks.
Wow. I like that there's joy in listening to other folks. Not anger and upsetness, but you get joy. Wow. So you all are blending that. You hear yourselves, that loving, listening, and you're living. And it just didn't start. But we see this thread just being woven in your lives. It's just amazing. So would you say that loving, listening, and living, is that like a layered type of thing? Is it an ongoing thing? Do you see it as an onion with layers? Do you see it linear? Do you see it as blended? How do you describe that?
I
How does
see
it
it as
sound?
I see it as an ongoing thing because I have a crazy husband who, who makes me talk about fighting in the face of fear. He makes me do all these things. I think he's basically a chicken, so he puts me up front to make sure that I'm the one doing it. But he encourages me, he pushes me. He comes home. He says, I think we should do this." And I'm listening in my ear and say, "Why?" then it's not we. Then it's, "I think you should do this." Sometimes we need a person like that, to it kind of gives you a sense that, okay, if you fall, it's a safe place to fall. That's what I call it. And you get encouragement. And the thing is that I found is that you have to make choices with the people with whom you associate. Because if you're always associating with people who are telling you negative things or you can't do that, then that kind of becomes a drumbeat in your head. But when you're associated with people like my husband who makes me do crazy things, and they always come out successfully. So I think that's one of the things. You have to make choices in your life that are really, really, really important. And that's one of the things I've tried to teach my children is how to make appropriate choices. I'm listening to this young lady here and listening to her say that lots of women that she associated with and taught her, okay, I've had this disease. She listened to them, and now she has a different frame of mind in terms of her own disease. So I think that's really important. You have to push young people to believe that. And in our household, I don't want to take up all the time. In our household,
you're okay.
My mother-in-law always lived with us. She's Mother Bramble, not me. My mother and father lived with us. So we were around a bunch of old people. And it's interesting now that I'm actually living on the third floor. We have another house. But once my grandchildren were born, we moved into the third floor of my son's house. We're there to babysit. And the same husband I'm telling you about who makes you do stuff, he's doing the same thing to the grandchildren. So it's something like Black women, we have to do it, and we have to teach our children to listen, not only to listen, and also follow our example. So I'm very big on family. And if you look at the Baltimore Times last week, my granddaughter was in my office and causing trouble. I said, "Go write a story. Go write something for the paper." She says, "You're going to really print it?" And I said, "Yes." And she got on how they're good at the computer, right? She's 10. She got on the computer, and I saw her fingers going like this. And then she printed something and said, "Here, Grandma." I could not believe what that child wrote. I want you all to make sure you pick up last week's paper. We published it. She's 10. Okay. Amazing. She talked about how fortunate she was, the examples that she had, and how lucky she was, and what she's going to do when she grows up to help solve problems. Yeah. So I said, it can be done. It's just simply listening.
Yes. And I know we're going to get back to the other two, but I have to throw this question in, and I'm not the one to be doing all the talking, but Queen Joy, how in the world did you find time to be the principal of a Head Start program, work with little people? Did you learn from little people?
Oh my gosh, that was my baptism in fire when I came to America. That's my job. That was the job I had, and it was in a church basement. And that's where you got to see a lot of some of the problems that happen with the kids, and it taught me a lesson of how you have to really pay attention to your own children when they're small. You can't just go to work and leave them. Even I always worked, so and I know that you have to. There's one little boy, I still have never forgotten him. He was the sweetest kid, but if he was eating at the table, one of the things about those daycare centers, it's very important. All of the things matter to them, that they got proper food, they were well clothed. If there was a problem at home, you had to help with it. And if you offered him anything extra, he would do this. And I kept saying, what the thing is about that? Why? He wanted to eat it, but he was afraid to ask for it. One day I'm in the bathroom with him because we had to make sure that they brushed their teeth. It was like being a mommy, really. That's what it was. Why not? And he pulled his jacket off and showed me he had these cigarette burns all over his. So of course we had to report it, but I also got a chance. I didn't want to embarrass him, so we got a chance. We got the social worker and we talked to him. And guess what his problem was? What his mother's problem was? His father's problem. his mother had a boyfriend who, before she was married to him, and this child looked just like the boyfriend, and so the father would burn him up. Can you imagine? That's the kind of stuff that we have to go through. So it taught me something that was very, very important. You always have to figure out with these kids, what when you see children misbehaving or doing that, there's some other reason for that, and what makes people do those kinds of things. But there it was. Anyway,
Wow.
that was a very, very sad thing, because I grew up in a very small place. We knew what everybody in the, very nosy people. So there was none of that going on where I was from. So that's the first time I'd ever seen like an abused child, but it taught me a lesson. And sometimes you wonder why people behave in certain ways. You sometimes have to learn to forgive them and maybe approach them in a completely different way, to what you think. Always have to be a little bit perceptive. Yeah, that's one of the things I think that I'm best at, is figuring out stuff. And I think that's the Head Start thing that taught me that. So that's another case of listening, but a different kind of listening,
Exactly.
experiential kind of listening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. Thanks for sharing. Randy, that statement in your bio where you said, I am a healer who operates from a place of love, because it's sort of tying in as she's talking, some of these things are just, can you just talk about that? Is that because you're a nurse or?
It's because I'm a nurse, but not, yeah, I think as a nurse, I have gone through the continuum. I've been at the bedside when, and taking care of persons at their most vulnerable, place. And I think that nursing is very sacred work. But then also I found myself even in the boardrooms and, in meetings and things like that, I needed to have my own value system, right? And what I understood is like how I show up or how I create space for listening or observing and assessing. I needed to have a compass. And so when I say I am a healer, I may have changed that a little bit. I'm a healer, but I don't heal people. I create space for healing to occur.
Right, yeah.
All right.
So I don't heal. I do create space for people to heal. And I've always said that, and I lead from a place of love. And love to me means leading or listening or living, open and vulnerable every day. Yes. And so I try to live open and vulnerable with myself first, and then also with persons I come in contact with. And so trying to meet them at a space where, as Queen Joy was saying, understanding people, and to understand people and to really, you have to hold space for them to be open and vulnerable, right? Because that was a vulnerable space for that young man to show, right? And so how we show up in our space, are we open and vulnerable? And does that invite another person to come into that space? And so that's what that means.
Wow, thank you. And to hear you say you may change that.
Yeah, because I think I have changed that part of I'm a healer, because that is, I had to check in with my own ego and said,
sure.
Are you a healer? No, you're not. You don't heal anyone. That's not what you do. God has given you the gift of creating
a space
for healing to happen. But
That's
I'm not
powerful.
a healer, right? I can only heal myself.
Exactly. That's so powerful. And this ties right back to Marnina, because how in the world, Marnina, as a youth ambassador for youth across borders, your compassion, what happened to get you over there to Honduras to work with children living with HIV? Tell them that story.
So I first want to acknowledge Randy. I love that statement. You create spaces to allow folks to, get healing. Oh my God, that's amazing. I'm gonna have to steal that, sis.
Yeah. She's listening. Me too. Everybody's listening.
So one of the things that, back to what we were saying about listening to other folks or being in community with other women, one of the women that is living with HIV, she's an attorney. Her name's Benita Ray. And she gave me the information about Honduras. And I was like, yeah, right. There is no way in the world somebody is going to take 6 youth living with HIV to Honduras to create this cross-cultural exchange. And sure enough, I got the interview. I met with the executive director of that organization, and I was able to go to Honduras. And ever since 2017, I take a week out of my year and I go visit with the youth in Honduras. and we talk about, you know, our struggles in the United States. They tell us things that are happening in Honduras, and we stay on the property of the orphanage. And a lot of times these kids are coming to this place because their parents can't afford their medication, or the parents don't live in safe housing, or, you know, the parents just give them away sometimes. And I remember one night in particular, I thought I had all my stuff together because I'm like, I'm this ambassador and I'm going to tell these kids about what I do in the United States. And I got there and we were all swapping stories. And for the first time, I told my story of my diagnosis and how I got diagnosed. And I just started to weep. And even though the kids, we had to have a translator to translate what I was saying from English to Spanish, the kids gathered around me and hugged on me. And I was just bawling.
Yeah.
I was bawling. And although their stories are way more horrific than mine, they took time with me to love on me in that moment. You know, I'm in this space of, I got my medicine, I have my own place, I got a car, I got this degree, you know, but I realized at that moment that I am no more than anyone else, that we are all in this space of living with HIV together. And so I learned so much in that moment, even though those are young folks and they're babies and, you know, from middle school to high school, I still needed that. I needed that love, and I needed someone who understood. You know, I have an amazing mom, and I love my mom. She's an educator and a teacher, and I think that's where I get my love of like talking and training and, you know, facilitating trainings and stuff. But she couldn't teach me how to be a woman living with HIV, and that's what, you know, older Black women have taught me, and that's what those kids really taught me, that it's about resilience and dancing in the face of fear.
Can I, Martina, you said something so powerful, because when you wept, and this is what I mean, like, this is why I think this panel is so awesome, like talking about generations, because it is a cyclical event, right? Like, as Queen Joy said, you know, this is ongoing and this is very cyclical. And we can make, when you thought you were there making space for the kids, they made space for you, right? For your in the moment. And if we could make those, I think that this, you know, talking about generations, if we make those bridges and we keep those connections, talking about community and starting first with family, it's so much healing in that togetherness, right? And thriving. And that's, you know, when we go back to like, how do we dance in the face of fear? I think that we do it as a community of people sharing. Thank you for sharing that story.
Absolutely. And that makes yourself vulnerable, being open, because it's not about you. Where am I going to get it?
Well, you know, I think that's one of the things that always bothered me about living here is the separation of generations. It was very weird to me, you know, at least in my family, also growing up where I did, because if you have a party at your house, you see they bring their children. The children sleep in the bed at night until it's time for them to pick them up to go home. They're teenagers there. They may be out in the yard or doing something else. Grandmothers come if they want. And so I think the mixing of generations is just extremely important, because there's so many lessons to be passed along as you go. And some of the times you're giving a lesson and you don't even realize your children are listening to what you're saying. Sometimes you want to knock them in the head, but they really are listening. You don't get it right then, but 3 months down the road, you might hear them saying, wait a minute, is she actually saying that out there? You know, things that you said. So I think that the generations should not be separated. I don't mean that you have to live with us like we do, but there should be more. I think there should be more kind of conversation. That's why I love this. And when you asked me to be here, you know, I said, of course. Why wouldn't I?
And just so honored that it started off with the generations panel, because everything else that comes behind this, you know, you're going to learn about that. We want to give time. If our audience has questions, you can start fueling those in. What's been coming in has been just comments about how much this is. They're thanking you for sharing your stories, storytelling. They thanking you for being open and vulnerable and what they're hearing. Transparency is where healing begins. Vonda just sent that comment in. Transparency is where healing begins. Was it hard to be transparent? Did we ever get over being transparent, or is that something you're going to learn all the way through? I don't know. Queen?
I don't know about that. Lots of things I'm very transparent about.
How do you stay transparent?
Sometimes you you're fearful and you feel ashamed for being afraid. But sometimes you just have to jump out there and face fear, you know. Look, with Baltimore Times, you know how many times it's payroll day. I'm going to be frank. And I'm thinking, Lord have mercy. Now, who else can I ask to lend me money so I can make payroll? Who else can I go? People are saying, if they see me coming, I go to my children, I go to my friends. You know, sometimes you just have to do it.
Yes,
and somehow or other, it always works out.
Because transparency, you may get hurt.
You have to be vulnerable in order sometimes to be even able to make change in yourself. You know what I mean? You have to admit, okay, I'm scared. Okay, well, what next? How do I do? Who can I talk to? And invariably, if you calm yourself and you just think it out and said, okay, well, what can somebody say? All they can say is no. And my theory is, okay, you might get 10 no's, but if you don't ask 10 people, you'll never know. You don't ask the 11th person, you won't find out. You know, that 11th person might be the person who's going to say yes. So I just kind of plug along. As I said, it's not an easy thing to do, but you know, necessity is the mother of invention.
Exactly. You sound just like my mother.
Yeah.
Her soul. But she would always never believe no.
No, that's right.
No doesn't mean no. No means there's a yes. Go again.
Exactly.
If they said no, go again.
Yeah. That's true.
Wow. And transparency makes you open to hurt. Did the three of you ever experience a hurt that you didn't think you could recover from? And you were able to dance again? If you didn't, that's wonderful. But is that a part of this rejection sometimes? And how do you step over? How do you get through it? That I'll dance again.
I know you know, it's hard for me to answer that question because, you know, I'm quite sure that rejection has come, but I always take it as a point of like, it's a stepping stone. So, you know, what possibly was negative in that moment, from that moment, I could change it around. And so even when I look back on it, and maybe it's my short memory, right? I'm looking at it from like, rejection. I'm not sure if they were rejecting me, right? Maybe they were rejecting the idea that I brought forward, but they didn't reject me, right? And so I use that to say, if they rejected the idea, then maybe I did not explain. Maybe there's another opportunity for me to explain it better, or maybe it's timing, right? And so, and that can be in relationships, right? You know, persons can, you can look at anything and say, you know, relationships, maybe that didn't work out, but what was the lesson learned? And maybe it was for that moment, and that was the lesson I was supposed to get from it. And how do I move on and continue to live in my ultimate joy, right? That's what I'm at a place now in life where I'm just living in like joy, and I want to glow every day in that, right? And I'm unashamed. But rejection does come, but I think it's a thing of learning how to kind of detach from what is the rejection, and is it you that they're rejecting, or is it something else, the idea, the proposal, or a relationship with someone. Maybe it's not.
I'm sorry, go finish. I'm sorry. Yeah. I find that for me it's almost like two different kinds of rejection, and I could tell you, I must have gone to 1,000 people when I started in Baltimore Times, and they laughed me out of their shop. But you know what? I just continue to go back. I never forget this one in particular. This man, he always used to be so rude to me, but I would just come in and joke. I say, okay, your girlfriend is back. And he would chase me out of his shop. One day I get in there, I say, your girlfriend is back. He says, I've been looking for you. Where have you been? I got an ad for you. I said, you got an ad for me? He said, yes. I said, oh my God, are you sure? He said, wow. But you know, the ones that hurt the worst are friends who betray you. And that, I have to admit, that is a very, my husband is loving and forgiving, but a friend who betrays me, he talks me out of the way I feel. I just feel hurt, especially if it's somebody that I don't mean, when I say investing, I don't mean money or time. I mean time and talking and all of those things, and find that, they've just done something that is just so awful. I have to tell you the truth. It's very difficult for me to forgive. Right now, that's the thing I'm working on, because I do have a best friend that we grew up together, and I'm still mad at her after 5 years, but I'm working on that.
Yeah.
Maybe after I finish this, I'll go call her and tell her what I said.
Someone has a question.
I love that openness and honesty. Like,
yeah, it's honest.
Yes.
Yeah. But sometimes you just got to get up and dance. Get yourself up off the. Listen, my dad always says, "Put on your big girl panties and get up and dance." What else you want to do? Yeah, you can't kill the person. You can't strangle them. You can't. Some people you can't even blot out of your life.
Yeah, and I think you're answering a question that pops up. The question pops up and they disappear. And I say, "Oh God, I'm missing it." How do you rebound from rejection of loved ones? And you answered that.
It's sad. It's hard. And some of
it's not easy.
Yeah, it's people that you're really close to. You've told them all of your secrets, and then you find out it was a big betrayal on the road. But you can't prepare yourself for that because you're not expecting it, and it's sudden. It's just hurtful, and you have to learn, to deal with it. And that's kind of how I do it. But I get mad at people for a while, and then sometimes because of my husband, because he laughs at everything. It just makes me laugh, and I forget it. I say, forget it. His thing is, you still have me. That's what he says. I'm still here. Forget them.
That's
laughing, and that's very powerful. He says, you still have people, still have your kids, you still have your mother, you still have your sisters. You have me.
So can I ask one last question of the panel, and you'll still have another opportunity to wrap up. So another L, because we said loving, listening, living. And when you touched on about your husband making you laugh, what about laughing? What about joy?
Right. That's everybody knows me. They said your mom called you Joy because you laugh so much. People know my laugh. If I pick up the phone and I start laughing in phone, they say, "Is that you, Joy?" Because I'm always laughing. I think it's a way of even dealing with things that bother you, which is what I said. We always, and that's why I absolutely adore my husband. Don't let him hear me say that though. But he's very, very good at turning things around. Okay, so this happened, but look at this. And then years later, he'll say, "Do you remember that time you were so mad at, or what happened?" Because a lot of things have happened to us too that have not been good, but. If you look at in the long span of time, and young lady, listen to me with this one, the things that you thought were so important today, in the end, they really, really don't matter. You don't want to channel. I've seen one of my aunts who was just bitter, and she kept that bitterness in her life, and she died a bitter person. You know what I mean? But if you don't change what's around you, sometimes it's the people around you, sometimes it's your thinking. Talk to yourself. I do that. Talk yourself out of stuff. If you think you're going to do something crazy, look in the mirror and say, "You know what, Joy? Do you really need to do this today?" Do you know what I mean? You talk to yourself. You talk yourself out of those feelings, because if you don't address bitterness, it then spreads to all of your other relationships. You start suspecting everybody of doing the same thing for you and whatnot, and basically that person isn't even worth it. So that's my 2 cents. And laughing, I love to laugh.
So what matters most? Wow. And did either of you have anything to say? Yeah. To say about laugh or smiling or?
Laughter is good. Sometimes you're always trying to find laughter. My mother is one that is going to have laughter all around her, and it breaks. I can see her shoulders relax, and she reminds me, because sometimes I can be a serious person, but laughter is one of those things that just breaks the ice, and it feels good just to laugh. Like some days I will just get in the mirror and just laugh, right? Just like laugh, like to see myself laugh or to do something silly for myself and just laugh at myself first.
Laugh at yourself.
Right? Like, and look at you getting all angry. As Queen Joy said, look at you getting, talk to yourself sometimes around that. Like, you're about to call that person. Just hold off on that ego.
Yeah, don't do it.
Right? Write yourself an email.
Exactly.
So you just laugh. I think that laughter is great for the soul, and at the end, it does not. You do get down the road and you realize that these things that you might be mad at today, or that you might be even planning for in a while, it doesn't really matter.
No.
One thing I do stop. For people who are listening in and like, what can I do? And I say, am I okay in this moment? Like in this very moment, am I okay? And if I can say yes, then all things are grounded and okay again, right? So that's my reset button.
Exactly.
Right.
Wow.
I have a person that says to me, "Why are you always laughing?" Bad things. I said, "Well, do you want me to cry?" No. Laughing, it releases all the muscles in your body. Yeah.
Yes.
I've heard people say, "You know what? I heard you laughing on there. That's why I knew you were on it because I heard you laughing." So it's just a good way to make yourself feel better. And because somebody said to me, "I don't like you. You're always laughing." I said, because I'm happy.
Laughing is healing too.
Exactly.
I have been crying before, and then I'll all of a sudden start laughing. Like I'm crying ugly tears, sitting there crying ugly tears, and then all of a sudden I'm like, girl, this is really, you are really going through it right now.
Exactly. And you say to them, honey, just laugh. How do you do it?
I found that even when someone is making you angry and they're arguing with you, if you start
laughing, that's the best thing.
It's contagious. Look at us laughing.
When they're mad, oh my God, if they're mad, you start laughing at them, boy. All of a sudden, everything breaks down.
It's okay. If people have lost that, we have to remind them. I have to keep an eye on the time, ladies. Then we got to wrap it up so we can. But this has been so delightful. What is your closing statement? What do you want to say about loving, listening, learning, laughing, whatever you want to say to our audience? People are putting in comments, y'all have me smiling and laughing at my work desk. How do you want to sum up this amazing topic, this panel? Tell them something. They're out there listening.
Let the young ones start first.
You're gonna put me on the spot, Queen.
I'm old. I get shoes.
I'm glad we didn't have to mute our mic so they can hear us laughing.
Take your time.
That's right, Marnina. It's okay.
So I think one of the things I kind of want to sum it up by answering the question of the young lady who put up, how do you listen to rejection, or how do you get rejection from a loved one? Yeah. And the way I've dealt with it is by creating boundaries. For myself, there's going to be folks in your life, especially your loved ones, like your family members, that have hurt you, because the hardest hurt comes from people that you love. And so I would say to create boundaries. I'm still learning about boundaries. I'm still creating them for myself every day. Wow. One thing I will say is to create boundaries so that you can laugh, so that you can love, so that you can live your life in your full self. So.
Wow. Create boundaries for yourself. Wow.
And no is a full sentence. It's a full sentence.
I like that.
Say it one more time, Marnina. Say it again.
No is a full sentence.
Can we say it together? No is a full sentence. Thank you.
I never heard that one before, but I agree. Yeah, that's very, very important.
No, it's a full sentence.
I know.
Boundaries. I guess I'll, go off of Marnina. And as we're creating boundaries, create time to listen to your own intuition, right? As learning to listen to your own intuition. So sometimes even dancing in the face of fear, it may require you to cry, but also know that when you cry, you can still laugh in that same moment. But listening to self and trusting self. So going back to leading and living open and vulnerable every day. Do that with yourself, get to know yourself at your core, because once you know yourself at your core, right, no one else, the rejection becomes a little less stingy, all right? And we can see our true self showing up in situations. So, having that building that intuitive muscle, I would say. And I think that that's listening and being at the table to listen to generations, like the wisdom of persons who have done this before us. And also, as Marnina said in her story, allowing the younger generation to create space for us, also for us to continue to grow, right? And to continue to live this life in a way that is thriving.
Yes.
Well, what was I supposed to say? What was the topic? I was listening to her.
No,
you were
fantastic. Your closing statement to our audience.
Talk mine. What was it? Learning. Tell me again.
Whatever you want to say to the audience.
Okay. Okay. I want to say that I was 75 years old in May. I cannot believe that I can see 75 and be walking, talking, wanting to dance, wanting to do everything. I have to say that I've been extremely lucky in my life. My husband is wonderful. I have wonderful children, and my grandchildren are coming out to be the same. They're fantastic. And so, but I don't take that lightly. Truthfully, you have to work at making your life true. You have to be true to yourself. And I firmly believe in boundaries. And one of the things that I've found out to be very successful for me, once I've identified what kind of personality or what your lifestyle is, if it's something that I don't want to be associated with, it's not that I still won't be your friend, but I won't be visiting your home. I won't be doing all of those different things. Because all that does is bring conflict to your life. I'm very good at sizing people up. And once I figure out if your mission is not like mine, I will still be a friend, but we will not be a close friend. I will be an acquaintance. And I think that's what's key to you. Because you always say, well, maybe I'll give them a chance. You give them a chance and they do the same thing again. Okay, that's chance number 5,553. That's enough. Some of you say, I like the whole boundaries thing. I'm very big with that. That's why I don't have 10 million friends. My close friends. And I have lots of acquaintances. I have lots and lots of people. But I'm very careful about that because I think your lifestyle, it tells a story about yourself. And if that's not, if I don't approve it, then, you could be my acquaintance, but I kind of keep barriers like that away. So that's what's worked for me. Yeah.
So the other L, learning.
That's right.
Loving, listening, laughing, learning. And we're going to keep on learning.
Well, you never stop learning. If you stop learning, you're dead.
You're dead.
You're dead.
Keep on learning and be able to receive.
That's right. Open yourself up to receive good news and to receive information, My grandchildren still tell me all kinds of things that I didn't know existed. I mean, I got this big iPhone, and who do you think tells me how to do stuff? The oldest one is 12. The youngest one is 6, and he can show me how to use the iPhone. Yes. And sometimes they tell me, the one grandson who just loves the stars and the moon, and all, he tells me all of the stuff that's going up there and what's happening with an airplane. And you have to you have to listen. If you don't listen, then lots of things will go by you, and you never are able to. And you have to be able to change your mind too. I think that's the other thing. You have to be able to change your mind. Yeah. Once you get a decision, you have to be able to change your mind. Because I think a lot of people who are older, they get stuck in this rut. That's not going to be me. I'm going to listen to you and give you a fair hearing. But I will also tell you how I feel. It's very important. Get it off your chest.
Yes. Stay fluid. Stay fluid. Don't brick yourself in. So, ladies, this has been awesome. We've learned so many lessons from the panel. Oh my gosh. I know the audience has taken notes. They're going to listen to this again. Creating boundaries, what matters most, how to rebound from rejection, how to live, learn, listen, how to create space. And we are humans too, the trajectory. Somebody put in the box that listen to, well, you said it, Randy, listen to your own intuition. That little, sometimes it's right that first time, hear it the first time. And somebody had put in the box about the trajectory. Ladies, I wish we could talk more and more. I love this panel. And all of you in our audience, we're going to have more of these. You know, there are other things coming, but we were the first to start it off.
That's
But I want to thank all of you. And at this time, we have an artist. You know, they want to make sure that our artists, they have done a tremendous job of participating. And I want to thank you, panel. Thank you, Queen Joy. Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Marnina. And I can't wait to hear the sequel of what's going to happen. There's a sequel to your lives as you go. I can't wait. Is anybody writing a book about their life? Anyway, we're going to let this go.
I just want to quickly say, I'm going to call all of you so we can interview for the Baltimore Times, okay? We do have a story on Reverend Hickman to run this week, but I would love to be able to interview you all. You're very interesting characters, and I would really love to have you in my life. Okay.
Oh,
so nice to meet you all.
Thank you so much.
It's a blessing to meet you.
Yeah.
Thank you all, panel, for saying yes. It was meant to be.
It's lovely.
Thank you so much.
I really enjoyed this. It was fun.
Yes. So at this time, I'm going to introduce our artist for today, Stephanie Singz. She has a unique sound. She's been compared to Jill Scott, Phyllis Hyman, Stephanie Mills, but she's herself, Stephanie Singz. So let's hear from her at this time. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, panel. Thank you.
This has been amazing.
Emotions are a secret tongue, only for the ears of the awoken. A spoken truth from the root of my mind and depths of my heart. The heart, you see, a special part of me, like breathing. Music comes from the heart, you see, a special part of me, like breathing. This song is my baby, it's birthed from my soul, presented to the world as a masterpiece. The hook is my smile that draws you in, a single note whispered from within. Lines create phrases, built in stages, showing up as a banging groove. Music is my reality, the melody weaves rhythm through my life, creating everything in harmony. Music comes from the heart, you see, a special part of me, like breathing. Like breathing out. Music comes from the heart, you see, a special part of me, like breathing. Chiming off a note of phrase, positions a hook, gives you pause for my cause. So sing with me, embrace the vibe, a natural high, take you up and drop the beat so gently. You know, music can do that. Definitely strong medicine. Nothing hurts when you sing this verse. Let go slow. The post reveals the meaning by design. The simple lines, they have the most meaning. Music comes from the heart, you see, a special harmony like breathing. Breathing. Music comes from the heart, you see, a special part of me like breathing. Like breathing. Music comes from the heart, you see, a special part of me like breathing. Like breathing. Music comes from the heart, you see, a special part of me like breathing. Like breathing. I need to breathe. I need to breathe. Music comes from the heart, you see. I need to breathe. A special part of me. Every note, every line. Hey, can you feel music the comes from the heart, you see. A special part of me. Like breathe, 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 breathe. Can you hear? Can you feel? Can you see everything I have shown you? Emotions are a secret tongue. Emotions are a secret tongue only for the ears of the.
Once again, thank you all for attending on this morning. We want to thank our sponsors, and it could not have been done without our sponsors and support of all of you. And you can see on the screen all the sponsors that are helping with this symposium, and we are looking forward to more. It's getting better and better every single Wednesday. You don't want to miss it. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to our announcers.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Demetrius Frazier.
Good morning, I'm Kayla Wolford.
And on behalf of the Star family, we want to say thank you and we appreciate you for joining on to our Why Women Cry conference.
Thank you for listening, loving, and just learning everything that all our speakers had to say. Thank you for Dorcas Baker. Thank you for Randi Woods. Thank you for Joy Bramble, or as I should say, Queen Bramble, as everyone been saying this morning. It was nice to see you all. Thank you for Marinina and Stephanie Singz. We had a delightful time listening to you all, wisdoms and just learning. Thank you. So next week, we have our next informative session, June 23rd, next Wednesday at 10 a.m. You don't want to miss it. It's our panel for women's health. Our moderator will be Randi Woods, and we will have the speakers as Dr. Cara Simpson, Dr. Yvonne Commodore Messiah. They will be speaking on fibroids, preeclampsia, endometriosis, and hypertension. And we will also have the entertainment for Doreen Vale.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that.
I'm looking forward to seeing what she sings. I really love Stephanie Singz. She did a great job.
Mm-hmm. And endometriosis is just one thing. I had a teacher in the 7th grade. She had left, during the school year for endometriosis, and I felt bad because they had my name in it. Yeah. I was
endometriosis.
Young. Right, endometriosis. You slob.
Oh, okay.
Now, so you all, every week we will have a drawing. So, drum roll. So the first name. Now, before I call this name out, make sure, everyone, please make sure that your numbers and your addresses match what you register with, okay? Because I'm going to be calling out the number and then I'll be calling out your name. So every week we will have a special drawing. So
next week, you must make sure that you are registered. If you are not registered, you are ineligible to be drawn for the raffle.
Sorry about that.
And staff,
and moderators, panelists are ineligible as well.
You know better than that. All right. First name, well, first number. The number is 1-7-5-9-3-7-8-3-8-9. I feel like the evening lottery. Okay. And the name associated with that is Miss Ramona Pickett. Miss Ramona Pickett, you are the first name for our drawing for Why Women Cry. Please make sure that you all are emailing all of your information to dhickman@sisterstogetherandreaching.org. That's sisterstogetherandreaching.org. It's all spelled out, and that's dhickman@sisterstogetherandreaching.org. That's our first name, Ramona Pickett. Ramona Pickett. I just have to say that. I feel like my name was Ricky Ricardo. Second name. All right. This number is 1-7-5-9-5-7-9-9-3-7. And that name is, Winona Matthews. Woo! Miss Winona Matthews, you are our second drawing winner. Please make sure you email your information to dhickman@sisterstogetherandreaching.com. .org. I'm sorry. .org. O-R-G. The last one for this afternoon. Number is 1-7-5-0-5-2-9-9-5-1. And that name is Wanda Commander. Okay, Miss Wanda Commander, please make sure you email all of your information, contact information to dhickman@sisterstogetherandreaching.org. Those are our three names for today. Please make sure that you register so that your name can be pulled on next week, and then the next week, and then the next week. Again, we want to thank you all for joining. We love you all. And again, next Wednesday, June 23rd, 10 a.m. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.